Also tonight, an about-face from President Trump after igniting a firestorm over the service and sacrifice of non-U.S. troops in Afghanistan. In a social media post, Trump today acknowledged the 457 British soldiers killed and wounded in action in Afghanistan, calling them the greatest of all warriors. CBS's Haley Ott in London has the latest.
This is Britain's National War Memorial, honoring those killed in conflicts like Afghanistan. Many across NATO countries were furious after they felt President Trump insulted their soldiers' sacrifices, and his apparent about-face may not be enough to repair the harm.
Will they be there if we ever needed them?
President Trump shocked America's NATO partners in an interview with Fox this week.
They'll say they sent some troops to Afghanistan or this or that. And they did. They stayed a little back, a little off the front lines.
Britain and other NATO allied countries lost hundreds of service members in the war in Afghanistan, and the president's comments left them reeling.
I consider President Trump's remarks to be insulting and frankly appalling.
In the UK, lawmakers across the political spectrum were horrified.
There is too much careless talk from President Trump.
How dare this man, who's never seen any action, who somehow or other, when there was a draft for everybody else in the United States, managed to avoid it, and yet now is commander.
Donald Trump just got hit with something he absolutely did not see coming. And based on his reaction, it is clear he is panicking. A federal judge has issued an order that cuts right to the heart of one of Trump's darkest secrets, the Epstein files. The documents he has been desperately trying to keep buried, the records that show just how deep his connection to Jeffrey Epstein really went. And now, a judge has ordered the Justice Department to fast-track the release of internal records, explaining why the Trump administration tried to keep these files secret in the first place. This is not some routine legal proceeding. This is a federal judge explicitly saying that the public deserves answers about whether Trump and Attorney General Pam Bondi reversed course on releasing the Epstein files, specifically because Trump's name was all over them. The cover-up is now under investigation, and Trump is absolutely losing his mind.
Mothers and fathers buried sons and daughters, Harry said. Children were left without a parent. Families are left carrying the cost. One of those families, Ben Parkinson's. He's among the most wounded veterans to survive the Afghan war. His mother was furious at President Trump.
It's disgraceful. It's disrespectful. These are the rantings of a child, and it's not acceptable in a supposed leader of the free world.
Keir Starmer spoke directly with President Trump.
Now let me explain exactly what this judge did, because the implications are enormous. U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan, yes, the same judge who handled Trump's January 6th case, has ordered the Department of Justice to expedite processing of a Freedom of Information Act request. But this is not just any FOIA request. This request specifically seeks internal records about the decision not to release the Epstein files. It seeks correspondence between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. And Judge Chutkan made clear in her ruling that this request concerns possible questions about the government's integrity that affect public confidence. She explicitly tied her order to media reports that Pam Bondi told Trump his name appeared in the files, and that the administration suddenly reversed its disclosure plan after Trump learned that information. In other words, a federal judge has now formally said that the cover-up itself needs to be investigated. The timing of this could not be worse for Trump. Documents that have already been released under the Epstein Files Transparency Act show numerous references to Trump. We are talking about at least 8 flights on Epstein's private jet between 1993 and 1996. We are talking about documents that underline just how close their relationship really was, despite Trump's repeated claims that he barely knew the guy. And then there are the emails. House Democrats released a batch of Epstein emails that include one where Epstein told Ghislaine Maxwell that Trump knew about the girls. Let me repeat that. An email from Jeffrey Epstein himself saying that Donald Trump knew about the girls. There's also a claim in those documents that an alleged victim spent hours at Trump's house. The White House furiously denies all of this, but the documents exist. They are part of the record, and now a judge is ordering more to be released. Now, let us really dig into what is happening here, for because this story has layers that are only starting to come into focus. The Epstein connection has haunted Trump for years. He has tried everything to make it go away, dismissing questions, attacking accusers, claiming the relationship was superficial. But the documents tell a different story. and now with a federal judge ordering the Justice Department to explain its decision-making, we are about to learn a lot more about what Trump knew, what he tried to hide, and how far he was willing to go to keep the Epstein files buried. This is not background noise anymore. This is an active legal and political crisis that is closing in on Trump from multiple directions simultaneously. Let us start with Judge Chutkan's order because the language she used is significant. She did not just grant a routine FOIA request and move on. She explicitly said that this matter concerns possible questions about the government's integrity that affect public confidence. That is a judge saying in an official court order that there are legitimate concerns about whether the Trump administration acted corruptly in trying to suppress these documents. She pointed to the specific FOIA request for records reflecting all correspondence between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. She noted that the request is plainly tied to media reports about Bondi informing Trump that his name appeared in the files before the administration reversed its position on disclosure. This is not speculation or political attack. This is a federal judge connecting the dots and demanding answers. The backstory here is crucial to understanding why this matters so much. Remember when Pam Bondi showed up at the White House with those binders, promising to release the Epstein files and deliver transparency to the American people? She made a big show of it. She held them up for the cameras. She talked about how the truth would finally come out. And then suddenly the administration reversed course. The full release did not happen. Documents were held back. Timelines were extended. And media reports emerged that Trump only backed away from releasing the files after learning that his own name appeared prominently in them. That sequence of events, the public promise of transparency, followed by the quiet reversal once Trump's exposure became clear, is exactly what Judge Chutkan's order is designed to investigate. She wants to see the internal records that explain what happened and why. The Department of Justice is in an incredibly difficult position here. They have admitted that they still have approximately 5.2 million pages of Epstein-related records left to review. 5.2 million pages. That is an almost incomprehensible volume of documents. They have said they need hundreds of lawyers from multiple divisions to process everything. They have warned that full release will take a long time, but Judge Chutkan's order forces them to stop slow-walking at least the internal decision-making records. She has put them under a December 19th statutory deadline under the Epstein Files Transparency Act. That means the documents about why the administration tried to suppress the files, the emails and memos about Trump's exposure and Bondi's role, could surface much sooner than the White House wanted. And once those documents come out, there is no controlling the narrative anymore. Let us talk about what has already been released. And because even the partial disclosures so far have been damaging, the documents show Trump flying on Epstein's private jet at least 8 times between 1993 and 1996. Some of those flights had Ghislaine Maxwell on board, the woman who was later convicted of recruiting and grooming underage girls for Epstein. Trump has always claimed he barely knew Epstein. He has said they had a falling out years before Epstein's crimes became public. But you do not fly on someone's private jet 8 times or more, since the full records may show additional flights if you barely know them. The flight logs directly contradict Trump's public story, and they raise obvious questions about what else he might be lying about. Then there are the emails that House Democrats released. These are emails from Epstein himself, communications that were part of the evidence gathered during the investigation into his crimes. And one of those emails has Epstein telling Ghislaine Maxwell that Trump knew about the girls. That is, Jeffrey Epstein, in his own words, saying that Donald Trump had knowledge of the underage girls that were central to his criminal operation. There is also documentation suggesting that an alleged victim spent hours at Trump's house, with Trump present. Now, the White House has furiously denied all of this. They call the accusations untrue and sensationalist. But here's the problem with that defense. These are not accusations from political opponents or media critics. These are Epstein's own communications, documents that were gathered by federal investigators, records that exist in official files. Trump can deny all he wants, but the documents say what they say. The cover-up angle is what makes this truly explosive. It is one thing for Trump to have an embarrassing past association with a convicted sex trafficker. That is bad enough on its own. But it is another thing entirely for Trump to use the power of the presidency and the resources of the Justice Department to actively suppress documents that might expose that association. That is corruption. That is abuse of power. That is exactly the kind of conduct that Judge Chutkan's order is designed to uncover. If the internal records show that Bondi told Trump about his exposure in the files, and that Trump then directed the administration to reverse its disclosure plans, that is a scandal of historic proportions. It would mean the President of the United States weaponized federal law enforcement to protect himself from personal embarrassment, or worse, related to a child sex trafficking operation. Pam Bondi is right at the center of this mess. She is the one who made the public promises about transparency. She is the one who reportedly briefed Trump on what was in the files. She is the one who oversees the Justice Department that is now being ordered to produce internal records about its decision-making. Her credibility is on the line. Her job may be on the line, and her future legal exposure could be significant if the records show she participated in a deliberate effort to suppress evidence that might harm the president. This is exactly the kind of situation that Bondi's critics warned about when she was appointed. They said she would turn the Justice Department into a tool for protecting Trump rather than enforcing the law. And now a federal judge is ordering an investigation into whether that is exactly what happened. All right, so let us break down what all of this means for Trump, for Bondi, and for the broader questions about what really happened between Trump and Epstein. Because this is not just about old scandals or embarrassing associations. This is about an active cover-up that is now under judicial scrutiny. This is about documents that are going to be released, whether Trump likes it or not. And this is about the possibility that the President of the United States used his power to obstruct transparency about his connection to one of the most notorious sex traffickers in modern history. Let me walk you through the implications, because they are enormous. First, let us talk about what Judge Chutkan's order means practically. The Justice Department now has to produce internal records about its decision-making on the Epstein files. That includes correspondence, emails, memos, meeting notes, anything that documents why the administration initially promised transparency and then reversed course. These records could show exactly what Bondi told Trump. They could show Trump's reaction. They could show instructions from the White House to suppress certain documents. They could show internal debates about how to handle Trump's exposure. Once this material comes out, and it will come out because a federal judge has ordered it, we are going to have a much clearer picture of what happened behind closed doors. And based on Trump's reaction, he is terrified of what that picture will show. Second, consider what this means for the broader Epstein disclosure process. The Epstein Files Transparency Act created a statutory framework for releasing these documents. There are deadlines, there are requirements, and there is a judge who is now actively monitoring compliance and pushing back against delay tactics. The administration cannot just stonewall indefinitely. They cannot just claim they need more time forever. The pressure is building from the courts, from Congress, from the media, from the public. And every time new documents come out, every time another batch of records gets released, there is a risk that something devastating for Trump will emerge. He cannot control this process anymore. The documents exist. Multiple parties have access to them, and the truth is going to come out whether he wants it to or not. Third, let us think about the political implications. The Epstein connection is different from Trump's other scandals. His base might be willing to overlook a lot: the affairs, the crude comments, the business failures, the lies. But association with a child sex trafficker is a line that most people are not willing to cross. The emails saying Trump knew about the girls, the flight logs showing repeated trips on Epstein's jet, the allegations about victims spending time at Trump's house. This is the kind of material that can penetrate even the most loyal supporters' defenses. And now it is not just going to be media reports and Democratic accusations. It is going to be official documents released pursuant to federal law and court orders. The receipts are coming, and they are going to be very hard for Trump to explain away. Fourth, consider what this tells us about Bondi's Justice Department. She came into office promising to restore integrity and the rule of law. Instead, she has presided over mass resignations, illegal appointments that got struck down by judges, and now a potential cover-up investigation involving the president himself. This is not what restoring integrity looks like. This is what weaponization looks like. Using the resources of the federal government to protect the president from personal scandal rather than to serve the public interest. Judge Chutkan's order puts Bondi's conduct directly under scrutiny. She is going to have to explain what she knew, what she told Trump, and why the administration reversed its position on disclosure. Those explanations are going to be made under oath, and if they do not match the documentary record, she could face serious legal consequences. Fifth, watch for how this connects to Trump's other legal problems. The Epstein files are not happening in isolation. Trump is also facing fraud judgments that are being enforced by federal marshals. He is facing the collapse of his immunity defense after the Supreme Court ruling. He is facing findings in more than 35 cases that his government lied to courts. He is facing mass protests over his immigration policies and international condemnation over his Venezuela strike. The Epstein cover-up is just one more front in a multi-front war that is closing in on him from every direction. And the pressure from all of these crises is cumulative. Each one makes the others worse. Each one reduces his ability to manage the narrative. Each one brings him closer to a breaking point where something has to give. Sixth, think about the 5.2 million pages that still have not been released. That is an almost unimaginable volume of documents. And somewhere in those pages, there may be material that is even more damaging than what has already come out. More flight logs, more correspondence, more witness statements, more evidence of what Trump knew and when he knew it. The administration is clearly trying to slow walk the release process, but Judge Chutkan's order shows that courts are not going to tolerate indefinite delay. The documents are going to come out, maybe not all at once, maybe not on Trump's preferred timeline, but they are coming. And every new release is a potential bombshell that could blow up in Trump's face. Seventh, consider what happens if the internal records show a deliberate cover-up. If emails and memos reveal that Trump was briefed on his exposure in the Epstein files, and that he then directed Bondi to suppress the documents, that is an impeachable offense. That is obstruction of justice at the highest level. That is abuse of presidential power for personal benefit. Now, with Republicans controlling enough of Congress to block impeachment, Trump might survive politically in the short term. But the historical record would be devastating. Future generations would know that the President of the United States used his office to hide his connection to a child sex trafficker. That is a legacy that no amount of spin or denial can escape. Here's the bottom line. Donald Trump thought he could bury the Epstein files. He thought he could use Pam Bondi and the Justice Department to keep the most damaging documents hidden from public view. He thought he could control the narrative the way he always has, through denial and deflection, and attacking anyone who asks uncomfortable questions. But a federal judge just blew that strategy apart. Judge Chutkan has ordered the release of internal records that could expose exactly what Trump was trying to hide. The cover-up is now under investigation. The documents are coming, and Trump is screaming because he knows that his darkest secrets are about to be dragged into the light. He knew about Epstein. He flew on his plane. He may have known about the girls. And now, finally, the truth is going to come out, whether he likes it or not. If you want to stay informed about the Epstein files and what they reveal about Trump, if you want to understand what these court orders mean and how they could affect his presidency, then subscribe to this channel right now. We are going to keep covering this story as new documents emerge. We are going to keep explaining the legal proceedings in plain language that anyone can understand. We are going to keep bringing you the truth about what is happening, even when Trump and his allies try to suppress it or spin it. Hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to see it, and join the Pump Politics community, because the truth matters and you deserve to know it. I will see you in the next.